Welcome to this video on locating information in the Laws of Australia encyclopedia, which is contained in Westlaw Australia. Now please remember that Westlaw is a subscription-based service, so you will need to be logged in via the library before you commence this process. It might be a good idea to try and follow along with what I'm doing on the screen. So there are some unique aspects of the legal encyclopedia and it helps to practice navigating it. So we will be looking at how to locate information in the legal encyclopedia using both the contents and search terms. So this is the Westlaw homepage. Now we're focusing on locating information in the legal encyclopedia known as the Laws of Australia. Now we could actually start that process by typing something in the search bar here. The problem with that is that it will search for those search terms across the entire database. So it may look at cases and legislation as well as relevant paragraphs in the Laws of Australia. So we need to refine our search to avoid having lots of hits of information that we don't actually need. So let's first click on the Laws of Australia down here, and this now takes us to that specific area of the Westlaw database. So you could use this search bar up here, and we'll talk more about that later, but note that it is actually searching for those terms now within just this particular section of the database, which is the Laws of Australia Legal Encyclopedia. I first want to show you how to navigate the contents page, which is here. You'll see that there are a long list of areas of the law, so 36 in total, and each of these areas contain a number of paragraphs on that particular area of the law. So let's just say that we're looking for information about an enduring power of attorney over a person's property where the person's decision-making capabilities have been affected by, say, an accident. So we're looking at enduring power of attorney in relation to the guardianship area of the law. What we should be able to see if we move down here is that there's a health and guardianship section of the contents page. So this might contain relevant information. So let's navigate the contents page here by clicking on the plus icon. And you can see that it presents us with a list of subcategories to look at. And we need to now identify which of these categories we might need. So the best thing to do here is to actually scan the list of subcategories and work out which ones you might need to look at. And remember, if in doubt, it's worth having a look just to check whether it is relevant. So here we can see that 20.9 concerns the administration or management of property. So that might be relevant to what we're looking at. Remember, we're looking for an enduring power of attorney over a person's property where they've lost their decision-making capacity. So let's expand 20.9. And here you can see it gives us 10 more subcategories to look at. So it's best at this stage to work through these categories and identify which might be relevant. Again, if in doubt, it's better to read more than less. So identify those that might be relevant and work your way through them. In this instance, number 5 looks like it may be relevant. Guardians or attorneys appointed by enduring instruments. So remember, we talked about finding information on enduring power of attorney because the person has lost their decision-making capacity. So let's click on that one. And you can see at this point, it presents us with a general overview and then it splits it into jurisdictions. And that's because the law on this varies from one state or territory to another. So let's say that we're in Queensland and click on the plus icon to open up the paragraphs that are relevant to that. And you can see at this point, we are now presented with a list of paragraphs within the encyclopedia. Now you can, of course, start at the beginning and read the paragraphs like a book. You'll see that they're now presented in order. Or if you're looking for something specific, you can scan the titles of each of these paragraphs and identify which ones may be relevant and therefore you need to read them. Let's say that we're looking for more information about the ability of an individual to enter into a power of attorney. We can scan read the titles and identify that there might be a relevant section in 20.9.1300. You see here it talks about capacity to execute an enduring power of attorney. So let's have a look at that one just as an example to see what a paragraph within the Laws of Australia looks like. So now we're viewing a specific paragraph within the encyclopedia. If I scroll down, you can see that it provides you with an overview of the law related to this particular title. Note that it contains footnotes, and those footnotes will link to the relevant primary sources that are connected to this area of the law, like legislation and cases. And if we scroll to the bottom, you can see that in this particular paragraph, there's only reference to legislation. Now note that you can click on these links to go through to those relevant sources. So that's really useful when you're trying to build an overview or understanding of a particular area of the law and you need to know what the primary sources say about the law. So that's how you use the contents to find information in Westlaw. But note that sometimes you need a little bit of insider knowledge to really know where to go to locate the information that you need. And that can be quite tricky. And that means that you might be forced to conduct a search using search terms rather than the contents page. So we're going to go back to the original homepage now and navigate through search terms rather than the contents page. So we're back to the Westlaw homepage. Again, we need to make sure we're narrowing the search. So we'll click on the laws of Australia. And this time, rather than using this contents page to navigate through to the information that we need, we're going to use the search box up here. Now, it was important to go into the laws of Australia to make sure that we're not searching the entire of the Westlaw database. And at this point, we could just type information into this box and it would look only in the Laws of Australia section of the database. But I'd like to show you a tip for refining the search further to limit the number of hits that you get. And that's by using the advanced button over here. So at this point, you're presented with a way of narrowing your search down. So I'm just going to scroll to the bottom first, and you can see that you can actually enter legislation here. So if you know that there's legislation on the topic, but you want to find out more information about that area of the law, you could type in the legislation title. So let's put something in here and see what happens. So I'm going to type in the Service and Execution of Process Act 1992, which is Commonwealth legislation. And what you can see is that it's actually entered the information into the search bar at the top, but it's also narrowed it down to legislation that is cited within the paragraphs of the legal encyclopedia. And then let's click search. And then you can see that it's ordering information by relevance, and you can see that it's narrowing down the number of hits to those that contain those search terms. Now at this point, obviously you need to have a scan of the titles of the paragraphs to work out which ones you need to have a look at, and then that will hopefully lead you to relevant paragraphs within the legal encyclopedia. Let's just have a look at this one as an example. So here we've gone through to paragraph 12.11.160, and you'll see that it gives you an overview of this particular area with helpful footnotes linking to relevant sources. But what you might also want to do is look at this window on the left, which provides you with an understanding of where in the legal encyclopedia it sits. So it sits within number 12, which is criminal sentencing. And this particular paragraph sits within 12.11. Now what that means is that if this isn't the precise paragraph that you're looking for, you can actually go back a step and look at all of the information that falls under, say, number 12 or 12.11 and work out which of those paragraphs contain reference to this act that are actually relevant to what you're looking for. So this bar on the left can be very helpful when you're just trying to further refine information across a number of paragraphs. Let's just look at an example. And you can see that it gives you everything that appears within 12, and that will help you refine your search for the information. Now let's go back to the Westlaw advanced search page for the Laws of Australia. So let's click that. And I just want to clear the box because I want to do a different search. Just as a point to note, so we put the legislation into the legislation cited title. So Westlaw knew it was looking for legislation. You could also do the same with cases. If you knew a case name on that area, you could write the case name in there and then see what paragraphs contain reference to that case. But let's just have a look at locating information using search terms. Now again, you can use these boxes here that really help you narrow that search down. So for example, you can list terms that you want to be excluded from the search. You could also do an exact phrase search. Now that's really useful because the use of words that are quite common will pull up lots of information that you don't need. For example, if you use the word violence, it would produce violence in the context of domestic and family violence, assault cases involving fights between two individuals. It might involve other forms of violence against animals, and that might not help you narrow the search down to find the information that you need. So if you're able to type an exact phrase in, it won't just look for a combination of words appearing anywhere in a document. It will look for that exact phrase within the document itself. But let's just look at the top box, which is looking for all the terms listed in this particular box. You need to think carefully about what search terms to use because, as I already said, a word like violence will produce massive amounts of hits. But let's just say that we're looking for torts and privacy. And you can see here that it's auto-populated the bar for us. We'll click search. Now, as I mentioned, it was looking for torts and privacy anywhere within a paragraph. So as long as those two words appear anywhere in a paragraph, it will locate that paragraph and produce it as a hit. If you want an exact phrase, like say duty of care or something like that, you'd need to put it in the exact phrase box. Now note that if you produce thousands of hits, you're going to have to think of some more search terms. It might be that you need to think about synonyms or adding further terms to the list, or using terms and connectors to link the search terms together. So note that using the word "and" would require that both the search terms have to appear in the document at some point, whereas if you used "or," it would expand the search and make it wider, in that either of the two terms would be sufficient for it to be produced as a hit. Note that Westlaw provides some guidance on the use of search terms and connectors, so if you are producing thousands of hits, have a look at that in detail, as it may be able to help you narrow the search further. But let's now have a look at one of the paragraphs that we've produced here. So let's have a look at this one, and you can see that it produces the paragraph with reference to cases that you can link through and view within Westlaw and legislation as well. And you can see that in this particular section, there's actually been some academic commentary that's been mentioned or cited in the legal encyclopedia as well. So if you're doing a theoretical essay question and you need to look at secondary sources, you can also sometimes find reference to useful journal articles in the section of the legal encyclopedia. I just wanted to look at the bar on the left here. So we're looking at the tort of privacy, but in this instance, it doesn't fall under the torts section of the encyclopedia. For some reason, it's been categorized under section 21, which is human rights. So that's what I was saying earlier about it not always being intuitive where you can find information, and sometimes you need to do a search term search because the contents page doesn't appear to contain what you're looking for. So that's a very quick overview of how to use the laws of Australia. It's a really great springboard for doing further research. It provides you with links to the relevant legislation and cases, sometimes references academic commentary on the law. Legal encyclopedias are often used by legal practitioners to identify the main or primary legal principles that operate in an area of the law that they don't know much about. So it's a very good starting point for legal research.